Okay, we've been using Hype to make a set symbols or a symbol and using images to make a visual button and then coordinating timeline actions and scripts to make it do things. And we want to just develop this a little bit further and think about how we might use content together, perhaps with sound to make an engaging narrative interaction. So here we have the state changes as we've just programmed with the additional elements of sound and then a second scene which you could do for your project. And we'll just have a look at how we've done that. So here we can see we've got our symbol as we had it on the timeline. On click we've brought in a sound sample which we can just do from here, so go to elements and then import sound when we're ready. So you want to pre-master the sound and bring it in. I'll show you how to do that in a sec. So bring in audio into the library via the element menu, and then we've just got a on click go to second scene and it plays this simple animation. Okay, so it's the first thing we were doing with some additional elements. So just before I get on to doing the sound and then looking at the incorporating that into the Hype document, just have a look at Photoshop and show you how the buttons were made and just some tips for working efficiently in Photoshop. So here we have the original button image that I had. You can see that looks like this. And all I've done is use the static state, made the static state using a black and white filter, and then on the press state inverted it. Now that's just for ease really. You're going to do something probably more interesting and relevant to your project, but this just shows you the different states. And then I've labelled each, so static, over and press, and these are going to go into the file names which you'll see in a minute, so it's important to label the layers. So if we want to get layers out of here and then into individual files which we need for the Hype rollovers, we don't need to copy and paste them into new PNGs. We can use the file export command in Photoshop, and you'll see there's an export layers to files option which is quite useful. If we go in there and then set up a folder, so go to new folder here, destination location, you might want to call it a particular image folder name, open that, and then give your file name a prefix. So if you're going to export lots of images, you might want to have main navigation as one prefix and sub navigation as another. This just helps you to identify the images, and then additional images or layers will be named. So in this case it'll be art button, static, art button, over, and art button, press. Okay, so that's the prefix. If we've got lots of layers in the document and we just want to export specific ones, we can turn all the layers off and just have the ones visible that we want to export, and then Photoshop will just export those. That's quite a useful little checkbox. And then in here, the file type we want to export it to. There's a range of things in there as we've looked at before, and we're going to use PNG, which is Photoshop's image that's quite well compressed and also honours transparency, which we looked at a couple of weeks ago. And then we want to keep transparency and make it interlaced. We don't want to trim layers because we've already cropped it. And then if you click run, your images will be exported and you'll see them pop out like this. So here you can see there's a folder here with my images in, art button press, art button over. So these are the layer names at the end here. And it will, Photoshop will automatically number it, but you can get rid of those little numbers in between if you want. So that's a quick way of exporting lots of layers to individual images from Photoshop. Just use the export command. For the sound file, I've just used a clip that's taken from a BBC sound archive, and then I've just edited that in Audacity. You can use any sound editing program that you want, Audition, whatever, and here you can hear the original version. So it's a double click and wind on, and I just want to use part of that, so I'm just going to trim that clip down here. And then with most interactive button sounds, you want them to start quite quickly after press, so you want a very short lead in, set that to there. And then you could obviously put some enveloping in and have it smooth around the edges. That's up to you. But for ease, I'm just showing you a quick way of doing it. And then I've exported that as individual file here. So if you go into export. For web users, you want a compressed format, so MP3 or MP4 for video and sound files, and also OGG. And particular browsers will prefer particular sound, particular formats. In this case, I've just used OGG. So file export is OGG, and then imported it into Hype using the import audio command. Drop down, and then you'll see it appear in here. So camera click OGG is now my sound library. Okay, so when I've gone to program this button in the symbol, you can see here on the interactivity for the rectangle, I've done all the things that we did before, and so on mouse click, continue timeline, on mouse down, play sound, interestingly at this point, on mouse over, continue timeline, on mouse out, start timeline. So the start, over and click are as they were before, but then on mouse down we've got play sound. So here in the drop down you'll see play sound is a default, it's one of the default options. So if we go in here and click play sound, it will then give the option to choose the sound from the sound library and bring that in. So it's really quite simple, that's how that works. Okay, and then just in here you'll see at the end of my sequence I've got jump to next scene. Okay, so these little timeline actions would be changed slightly. So I've got pause 1, pause 2, and then instead of start timeline I've got jump to next scene as the default here, and then I've got transition here of push left to right. Now you can do all sorts of things here. You can do a swap, and that will change, and you'll see the difference here. Or if I go in here, I can push top to bottom. Which is perhaps a bit more photographic, so you can imagine a Polaroid. And so there are little touches that you can do, and that's it, really quite simple. So authoring a sound, trimming it down, saving it in a compressed format and bringing it in via the Elements menu as audio into the sound library, gives you your camera click OGG, and then when you come to do the actions for the rectangle, on mouse down, just play the sound and it will play that, and away you go.